The reverse clock. Ethan Graves had always been fascinated by time. As a child, he'd sit for hours dismantling old watches and clocks, trying to understand how the gears and springs worked in harmony to measure the invisible. As an adult, his fascination turned into a career. He became one of the most renowned antique clockmakers in the country, restoring priceless timepieces to their former glory. One cold December evening, Ethan was working late in his dimly lit workshop. The scent of varnish and oil hung in the air as the rhythmic ticking of clocks surrounded him like a symphony. The bell above his shop door jingled, startling him. It was unusual to have customers at this hour. A man stepped inside, cloaked in shadows. His face was gaunt, and his eyes had a hollow quality, as though he hadn't slept in days. Without a word, he placed a clock on the counter. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen, an ornate brass casing with delicate etchings that seemed to shimmer in the light. The hands of the clock moved backward, ticking in reverse. "I need you to fix it," the man said, his voice barely above a whisper. Ethan furrowed his brow. "It's already working. It's just running backward." "That's the problem," the man replied. "And it's not. Please, you must fix it, quickly." Before Ethan could ask further questions, the man left, the bell jingling once more. Ethan stared at the clock, a mix of curiosity and unease creeping over him. Something about it felt wrong, almost alive. But his passion for unraveling mysteries overpowered his apprehension. Over the next few days, Ethan examined the clock. The craftsmanship was impeccable, almost otherworldly. There were no maker's marks, no signatures, nothing to identify its origin. Stranger still, the clock's mechanisms defied logic. Gears moved without any apparent power source, and the ticking was faint but constant, even when Ethan removed critical components. One night, as he tinkered with the clock, he noticed something chilling. The time displayed on the reverse clock was not random. It mirrored his own life but backward. At 8 p.m., the clock showed 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., it displayed 6 p.m., counting down his day in reverse. He tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but the realization gnawed at him. The following day, his fears deepened when he noticed the clock changing more than just time. It began to display dates. Yesterday, the day before, a week ago. It was as though the clock was rewinding his entire life. Ethan's obsession with the clock consumed him. He stopped taking new clients and rarely left his shop. The reverse clock ticked on, each moment a reminder of a past he was powerless to stop from unraveling. One evening, as he watched the clock, his name appeared in tiny script on its face, just below the hands. He recoiled in horror. Beneath his name was a date, December 31st, 1995, the day his parents died in a car accident. He hadn't thought about that day in years, but now the memory came rushing back. He was just a teenager, sitting in the hospital waiting room, his hands trembling as a doctor delivered the news. The clock's ticking grew louder, almost deafening. Ethan couldn't look away as the hands pointed to the exact time of the accident, 11:58 p.m. Suddenly, the room around him blurred, and he found himself standing outside the hospital, in the freezing snow. He was no longer in his workshop. He was in the past. Ethan stumbled through the snow, disoriented. The world around him felt real yet unreal, like a dream he couldn't wake from. He saw himself, younger and grave-stricken, sitting on the hospital steps. The sight sent a shiver down his spine. "Why are you showing me this?" he whispered, though no one was there to hear him. The clock's ticking echoed in his ears, guiding him. He followed it to the highway, where he saw his parents' car moments before the crash. Panic gripped him. He ran toward the vehicle, screaming, waving his arms, trying to stop them. But his voice was swallowed by the night. The car skidded on black ice, veering into oncoming traffic. Ethan fell to his knees as the scene dissolved. He was back in his workshop, the clock still ticking. From that moment, Ethan realized the clock wasn't just a timepiece, it was a portal, forcing him to relive pivotal moments of his life. Each time it showed a date, he was transported back, helpless to change the events that had shaped him. But the clock had a cruel twist. As it counted backward, it also aged Ethan forward. With every trip to the past, he returned older, his body weaker. He noticed gray hairs, wrinkles, and a growing frailty that scared him. The clock wasn't just taking him through time, it was stealing his future. Desperate for answers, Ethan searched for the man who had brought the clock to his shop. He found nothing. No records, no name, no trace. It was as if the man had never existed. On a stormy night, the clock displayed a new name, Ethan Graves. Beneath it was a date, January 1st, 2025. Tomorrow. Ethan's heart raced. He knew what it meant. The clock was counting down to his end. As midnight approached, Ethan sat alone in his workshop, staring at the reverse clock. The ticking grew louder, faster, until it became a deafening roar. The hand spun wildly, and the date flashed in blinding light. Then, silence. When Ethan awoke, he was surrounded by darkness. The clock was gone, and so was his workshop. He felt weightless, suspended in a void where time had no meaning. A voice echoed round him, calm and steady. Time is not yours to control, Ethan. You have lived in its grasp, and now you will rest beyond it. Ethan closed his eyes, a single tear slipping down his cheek. The reverse clock had taken everything from him: his time, his life, and finally, his existence. But in the void, he felt a strange peace. For the first time, he was free.